Can. I can. All right. So we are recording and we can see your screen.
Okay, it should just be the slides if you're
That is
seeing
correct.
everything correctly.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
And if I can
All
ask
right.
everybody to mute, that would be
Mm.
amazing.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to you're going to hear about me as I'm going through this process, right? Probably more than you wanted to hear about me. So I'm not going to introduce myself other than I'm Angela Kristen Taylor. Um, as far as Epique goes, I'm the managing state broker for Georgia. Um, I serve on the executive advisory board and the founders board. I've been here for almost a year and a half. And I have been a coach and a consultant for 22 years. I have been in the real estate industry for 31 years. And yeah, so I'm going to look over here because my screen's over here. So you may see me kind of back and forth here. Um, but I wanted to do this talk for you guys about going deeper into relationships because this has been a really big theme for me, especially this year. And because I've been a coach for so long, it seems like this would be something that's natural to me, right? To go deeper. But what I've found is that the actuality of it is that I'm really good in helping other people open up so that they can go deeper into themselves. I'm not really great at opening myself up and going deeper with somebody else. Does that make sense? Like the difference? Yeah. So, and so the thing is it's like this year, it's really been a big part of my journey. And a lot of the people around me, I've seen them do this as well, where we've had to really go into a space of being really vulnerable with each other. And in doing so, have deepened our relationships, right? So I'm going to kind of go into more detail with this as we're going through the slides, but I want to give you some examples of how I've done this lately. So I have gone deeper into my relationship with my husband, simply by us looking at an argument as a space of friction. So instead of it being a you said, he said, she said, whatever, pointing fingers, blaming each other, but more going into I'm feeling this and this is where it's coming from, and him doing the same thing so that we're able to really open up to one another and really see the other person's perspective without putting on our story glasses. And so what I mean by story glasses is that we tend to see things through the lens of our story. Does that make sense? So, your story meaning all the crap that you've been through in your life that has told you who you think you are and who you think others think you are, what you expect from other people and what you don't expect from other people. So that this way, when you get into an argument, you're going to be triggered all over the place, right? Because you're looking through your story glasses. You're looking through the lens of what you're expecting and what you're not expecting. And so when you take those off and you can really look at another human without all your triggers involved, you might feel them, but without leaning into those triggers, without believing those triggers, then you can look at this other person and their experience as being separate from your experience. And that's when you're able to go deeper because you're letting go of all the stories. And so we do the same thing. I've done this with my husband. I've done this with my friends. I've done this with even my agents that I work with, you know? So I wanted to bring this to all of us here at Power Girls because I think it's an important conversation to have. I think it's important to our lives, to our businesses. I think it's important to our relationships in general and our clients, every bit of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I apologize for the very blurry picture, but this is circa 1978, and that's about as good as it gets when it gets blown up on Canva like this. So this is 1978. I was 4, and this is before I built the wall. All right, who's got a wall? Everybody know what a wall is? You're like, one wall? So many walls, Amber. So funny. Yeah, we have walls, right? And I want you to ask yourself where your wall comes from and what it consists of. Y'all feel free to type this stuff into the chat when I ask you questions. Just pop it in there. Where do you think your wall comes from and what does it consist of? I'll tell you mine. This picture right here is age 4, and I've got a big smile on my face. However, this was right before my parents got divorced. Um, right before my entire life as I had known it up to that point fell apart completely. And you know, when I was born, my parents were in their early 20s and they really didn't know who they were, much less be able to parent. And so when they split up and they had a very, very messy divorce. And my father's parents lied in court and said that they would stay, they'd move to his house and they would live with us and they would take care of us and all these things. And then as soon as my dad was awarded custody, they left and went back to their house out of state. And I know this because I read the court transcripts and then I knew what actually happened. My dad worked nights at NASA, and I had a 3-year-old little brother when I was 6. And my dad left us home alone all night. And we were by ourselves. And all day he was asleep and we were by ourselves. And I was the one who did everything. I took care of everything. I made sure we ate with whatever I could come up with. I did everything. And I got punished for a lot of it. My dad used to beat me. It was awful, you know? And then my brother would make fun of me as he got older. His friends would make fun of me. I got picked on a lot at school. I had a hard time making friends, you know? There were a lot of things there that created that wall as I went. And I want to click through to this next slide here, because a lot of the stuff that you guys are putting here into the chat about the fears and protection and you know, all this stuff, abandonment, rejection, trauma, we build walls to protect ourselves, and they are to create a sense of safety. That is what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep ourselves safe from everybody else in this outside world, right? That's what we're doing. Does it work? Sometimes to an extent. It depends on, I'm going to answer this question, but it really depends. Yes, Dawn. Yes, but at what cost? That's exactly right. It does keep us safe. It also keeps us stuck. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, is that false sense of safety that we get from our walls and what happens when you let the walls down. These are the relationships that I've had in my life. And this is me with my husband and our little one, who is now almost 11. We have 4 other kids, 2 from me, 2 from him. And so we've got 5, but this is the one that we had together. So this picture is probably about 9 years old. But I put in here the relationships because this is really important. If you look up here at these top 7, I put them in order of how they appeared in my life, right? So daughter, then sister, then student, then friend, then girlfriend, then coworker, then employee, right? These are the relationships that created my walls. These are the earliest relationships. So as a daughter, I learned that I wasn't important. I didn't matter. I was a burden. I was a problem. I was the pain in the butt that they always had to deal with, right? As a sister, I was annoying, controlling, bossy, and anything I said had no impact whatsoever. As a student, Dawn, you should have known to bring your tissues. Any call, I'm leaning. Yes, it is getting real. As a student, I was really smart, but didn't apply myself. I didn't do my homework. I was always goofing off. I was not participating. I was not engaging. I was choosing the wrong people to do my book report on because the teacher didn't approve. I was um, too much of a prude because the teacher that tried to take me out of class so that he could start a relationship with me, I didn't really respond well to that and ran out the door. Right? So, not a lot of good experiences. Right? As a friend, I learned that I could show up for everybody else, but nobody was going to show up for me. If I needed help, they ran the other direction. If they needed help, I showed up no matter what, always. As a friend, I learned that if I behaved exactly as myself, as me, as who I am, I was either ridiculed, made fun of, picked on, or tossed aside completely. I wasn't free to be me and also be accepted. So, in order to be accepted, I had to create some other persona that was deemed acceptable. A lot of you might consider that mirroring to a very large extent. It's a really good skill to have in sales, by the way, which is why a lot of us are in sales because we find it very easy to mirror the people around us. But we take it too far into people pleasing and don't know how to hold our own as an individual. Okay. As a girlfriend, I learned that there were only certain behaviors that were acceptable. There were only certain things you could do that were okay. And if you didn't put out, if you didn't acquiesce to everything they wanted, they didn't want you anymore. Now, not everybody had these experiences, okay? These are mine. I'm sharing them with you because we're all going to have our own individual experiences. But this is how we create those walls. This is how we create those story glasses that we put on, okay? As a coworker, I found that people didn't, I'm going to lump the coworker and employee thing together. I liked being a coworker because I loved to have fun at work and connect with people, but it really fell into the same things as the friend, right? Really fell into the same things as friend. I would make friends with everybody I worked with. I would show up for them and they wouldn't show up for me. They needed a shift covered, I did it. If I needed a shift covered, nobody do it, and it was like come in or you're fired, right? Like that's what I experienced. Um, and then as an employee, they would, bring me in for that review. And I would then, I'm very analytical, you guys, I'm very analytical and I'm very observant. So they would ask me questions about my experience, and I would be very honest, explaining everything I was observing, everything I was seeing, and everything I thought they could do to improve. That was not taken very well. Um, and I'm not the person that's just going to be like telling you everything you can do wrong and then not listening. Like, I'm very open to hearing all that. It's just they didn't want to say anything to me because I triggered something in them when I gave them what I felt was honest feedback, right? So these were the stories, these 7. This is where the stories came from. Everything below that is how I started breaking those stories down, unraveling them and taking them apart. And so when I became a wife the first time, I was 20 years old, and I married a man who was 9 years older than me. And I didn't know at the time, but later he was diagnosed as being bipolar. No wonder, right? I can show up like nobody's business. So here was someone who needed me, and I was really good at showing up. And so I learned a lot about myself in that relationship because I learned a lot about what I was willing to accept and what I wasn't. And I also learned that I didn't have to be the person to pick up all the pieces for somebody else. I could really only do that for myself. And it's because I was in a position with him where I was completely helpless to make any kind of change because he wasn't capable of receiving it. The only person that could change him was him, and he needed help with that. He needed medication, and he was unwilling to take it. He was unwilling to accept any part of his diagnosis. So I was stuck going, I want to help you, I want to help you, and knowing I couldn't. So I had to really face, who am I if I'm not people pleasing? Because there was no pleasing him. Who am I going to be if I can't make somebody else happy? And then who am I going to be if I can't find happiness in somebody else? What does that mean? And so I had to really learn how to create my own happiness, how to become the person that I wanted to be and not who everybody else thought I was or who everybody else said I needed to be, but who I actually am. And I honestly, I didn't know who she was. I had no idea. It took me a long time to figure that out, you know? And I became a mother when I was 25. And then I became a mother again at 28. And then I had Zane, my third one, when I was 39. But I left my first husband when I was 30 years old. And I went through a whole year before I did that of absolute and complete depression. I was at a point where I would wake up in the morning and I would get the kids up and get them dressed and feed them. And then I would put them in their playroom and I would go around the corner and I would sit and cry. And I would cry as quietly as I possibly could so that they wouldn't come over. And I would always like wipe my face and then go in, you guys doing okay? Everything all right? Okay, okay. And then I'd go back in and let it all out again. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. I had been through so many divorces with my parents. My mother's been married 5 times. My dad's been married 4. I was like, that's not going to be me. And I sure as hell didn't want to put my kids through what I went through. And so the last thing I wanted was to get a divorce. But I did. And I was a single mom for 6 years. And that wasn't any easier. But it took me to a space of opening up on a whole new level because I had to figure out who I was on my own in every aspect. I was self-employed. I had to figure out who I was as an entrepreneur. I had to figure out how and who I was as a mother without another parent around. I had to figure out who I was as an ex-wife who had an ex-husband that wouldn't speak to her at all, wouldn't co-parent, wouldn't participate, wouldn't do anything. And that was very difficult. He still showed up to pick up the kids, wouldn't let them talk to me. It was a mess. And so I really had to figure a lot of this out. As a coach, as a consultant, as a mentor, I saw so many examples of all these really successful people in front of me. And I felt anything but for some reason they like talking to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm here for it, whatever you want. And apparently it was something I was good at. I was good at speaking. I was good at asking questions. I was good at getting people to open up and see things from a different perspective. And I was like, that part was easy because I was good at doing it for me. But again, I always had on my story glasses. My story glasses telling me this is how I can be friends with people when it's a transaction, when they're paying me and I can show up and be as strong of a friend as I want to be, but I'm not expecting anything from them but a paycheck because there's no vulnerability in it for me. I don't have to expect anything from them. I don't expect them to show up for me. I don't expect them to be my friend. I show up, I do everything I'm supposed to do, right? And they pay me, and that's what I'm receiving back. So it was a very it was two-sided, but a very one-way manner of being, you know? But it worked for me because I didn't have to let my wall down. Does that make sense? I didn't have to let the wall down. I didn't give anybody an opportunity to betray me or not show up for me or not take care of me. I didn't give them the opportunity at all. All they had to do was give me a check or let me charge a credit card. Okay. I got really deep into myself and learning about who I was and who I wanted to be. And when I met my husband, he brought two bonus kids into the situation. So then I had to learn how to be a stepmother. And had to learn how to mother children that I didn't understand. His children had been abandoned by their mother when they were 8 and 4 years old, and they had never seen her since. And she had been in and out of jail. She'd been into drugs and alcohol and all kinds of problems. And I didn't understand those kids. And it was hard for me. And it was hard for us to all connect together. But eventually we did because I worked really hard on it. And I worked really hard in being open and being honest and communicating and creating an environment where they could communicate freely back and letting them know that I wasn't ever going to give up on them the way that their own mother had, and that we were going to be different. And I feel like it's all of those relationships and everything I've taken away from them, but more so the relationship that I've had with myself that's allowed me to step into being a leader. Because I wouldn't be any of this if I hadn't have been through all of that, you know? Um, we've all been hurt and we've all hurt others. Relationships are messy. If you guys ever read that book, Don Miguel Ruiz, it's called The Mastery of Love. Same guy that wrote The Four Agreements, but this one is The Mastery of Love. He talks about everybody walks around with these open wounds. and we're all poking at each other's wounds, the fact is that most of us are not doing that intentionally. We're not walking around saying, "Oh, you got a sore there. Let me jam my finger in it." We're not doing that because inherently we're good and we care about each other. But what happens is somebody inadvertently pokes your hole. That I said that all wrong. I'm so sorry. Somebody inadvertently pokes at that wound, right? They poke at that wound. And when they poke at the wound, and they didn't know it was a wound, they didn't know they poked at anything. And then you're so overwhelmed and so upset because what they did just triggered you in such a way. And what you're feeling is a memory. You're feeling the fear associated with that memory. I've been abandoned. I've been traumatized. I've been broken, right? I'm somebody's problem to deal with. When they poke at that wound, it's because they made you feel the way that memory made you feel when you felt it originally. So they brought that back up to the surface. So what do? We don't just say, "Oh, God, I am feeling something right now. This does not feel good." That's not what we say. We're like, "What did you say?" And then we go lay into them. And then they think we're crazy because they're like, "Whoa, I don't even know what you're talking about," right? They rarely do that either because now you just triggered something in them and they're like, "What?" And then they're laying into you. And it just goes back and forth. And you don't go anywhere until you're both exhausted from screaming or yelling or whatever, arguing in whatever way that you do it. And then you go to your separate corners, realize, I didn't mean any of that stuff I said. I don't really feel like this. I just want a hug. I just want to get through this. And so you make up, but you don't really resolve anything. Right? And this is what happens in every one of our relationships. It's the most intimate relationships that we have where we actually take the time to argue. Because what happens if it's a coworker or a friend or whatever else and they triggered you and what do? We just ignore it. We just go in the other direction and pretend like, you know what, I really just don't like that person very much. I'm just not going to be in their life anymore. Just no big deal. We argue because we care, because we don't want to lose that person, because that person really means something to us. So arguing is a form of going deeper. But we have to go deeper still in order to get beyond the story glasses, to get into a space where you're like, "Listen, I got these story glasses on. I'm going to take them off. I want to hand them to you so that you can see through my story glasses for a minute. And then you give me your story glasses. I'm going to look through those for a minute. And then we're really going to understand each other." Okay? That's what me and my husband do. Don't get me wrong. We fight first. But then we exchange those story glasses. And it makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Because then we have that friction that comes up. But then afterwards we work through it and then we understand more about each other and we create a much greater sense of safety with one another by doing that. And don't get me wrong, it took us a good 12 years before we got to that point of being able to do that. All right. This is Caffeine for the Soul is written by Michael Neal. He's written several books. He's amazing. I had him on my podcast a couple years back. He does these all the time. If you follow his LinkedIn or his Facebook, and this says, "You are not broken. You are not lacking. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a perfectly imperfect human being, doing the best you can with what you have." How's that feel? It feels good to hear that, right? And we need that reminder. We really change it to I, Jamie says. Yes, exactly. You know, it's like we need to hear that. We need to hear that we're not a problem. We're not a problem. Even though so many people may have made you feel like you're a problem, we're not. But I want you to ask yourself, if you're going through life with these story glasses on and you're thinking, this is how people perceive you, because this is how people have told you you are, it's in some way, shape, or form throughout your life and your early relationships, how do you think that influences your behaviors in your work? Think about it in terms of clients. Think of it in terms of lead conversion. If you think of yourself as being broken, being lacking, being a problem to be solved, are you going to make that call to that lead? Are you going to reach out to all the people that you know and talk to them and spread the word that you're an amazing agent and you do a great job? You don't. We don't do it. And that's why. That's why. Because we have our story glasses on and because we're seeing ourselves and believing other people see us as the way we were told we were when we were kids, when we were younger, in those earlier relationships. You are not the sum total of who you were told you are. You are who you choose to be in every given moment, who you choose to be, right? My husband saw a picture of himself a few years ago and he's like, damn, what happened to me? Like, I got fat, you know? And he's looking at himself. He's like, this is unacceptable. I am not going into my 50s like this. And that man went and bought a little cheapest Bowflex he could find and started using it every day. And then he started watching YouTube videos on everything under the sun around health and wellness and fitness and nutrition and vitamins and supplements and all kinds of stuff. And he literally changed his entire body, everything. He changed his activity levels. He changed the way he processes information. He changed everything because he said, I'm going to be somebody that I want to be. And he did it. He did it because he said, I choose something else. You know, sometimes we do things um, on purpose to prove somebody else wrong, right? We were talking about this a little bit on a call earlier or last night. I can't remember. But we want to prove people wrong. These people that have told us we're no good, we want to prove to them that we are, you know? And that's not doing it for the right reasons, you know? My little brother, one of my little brothers, I have three, my youngest brother bought a house a couple years ago. And it's like this massive, huge house. Like he's got a wife and one kid. You know, this house has its own tennis court, full-size tennis court in the backyard, you know? And my dad sending me the link to look at this house and stuff, and look what your brother just bought, you know? And all I could feel inside of myself was that I wanted a bigger, better house to prove to my dad that I was just as good as my little brother. But I don't want a house that's like that. That's really not me. It's not my style. And it doesn't have anything to do with anything. I don't have to prove myself to my dad. But I felt that in that moment, you know? I felt it. That sense of rivalry, that sense of accept me. Why can't you accept me? Why am I always the problem? Why am I never good enough? Right? And that feeling that you have in that moment when you're presented with something that makes you feel less than and you want to fight up against it, that's not motivation. That's not drive. That's fear. That's fear showing up and telling you that unless you compete and run the race, you're no good. You're just like everybody said that you were. When maybe that's not even a race that you want to run, you know? And this is really about digging in and going deeper into yourself, knowing who you are and what you want, never competing with somebody else because you're not them. You're you, and you're you uniquely for a reason. You have your own purpose, and everybody else just their purpose doesn't have to matter in that way where it's going, you can be inspired by other people. That's wonderful. But don't be driven because you have fear of not being accepted. We don't want to do that. Don't hide yourself behind the face you think others want to see or will accept. That's kind of what we were just talking about. Um, we can create that persona. We can create goals that fit into that persona. We can do all these things, and it's not us. It's not us. So when you find who you are and you're willing to step bravely into her because it's you, what you're really doing is you're shedding all these layers of everything else that you thought you had to be or do to be accepted, to be loved, to be wanted. You just get to throw all that off and say, this is me as I am. I'm proud to be me. I'm lit up to be me. And this feels so good to just be who I am without having to struggle because I get to be myself. And how amazing am I? Just being myself, you know? Because that's when we let go of the fear. That's when we say, you know what? My people are going to find me. They're going to find me. But are they going to find us when we're all wearing all those layers of everybody else that we think we're supposed to be or who somebody else wants us to be? They can't find us. We're buried. We're buried. And we feel so alone, so lost, so lonely when we're buried in all those other personas that are not us. So when we shake them all off and we just stand naked in our own selves, in our truth, then our people find us because they see us and they're like, oh, look at you. You are glowing. You're glowing. And I love how you glow. And I just want to be part of that glow. And then you get to be friends with someone who's going to show up for you the same way you show up for everybody else. And that's life changing, life changing. Keep It Light, Dutch. Anybody know this movie? Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. It had Michael Douglas and Matthew McConaughey. If you've not watched it, watch it. It's hilarious. It's a play on Scrooge. So it's the ghosts, but instead of Christmas, it's the ghosts of girlfriends past, present, and future. Really fun movie. But so without giving too much away, Matthew McConaughey is the Scrooge, right? And Michael Douglas was his uncle who raised him, who was like could have been a member of the Rat Pack, like total womanizing, just total ass, right? Just nobody you'd want to be around. And he taught this kid like from very early on how to keep it light, to take what you want from a woman and run the other direction. Never get involved, never go deep. He said, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to find yourself spooning. And he goes, and that's when you walk away, run away. And so he spent like this whole portion of his life doing that and running away. How and why do we run away from connection? I'll tell you. I'd love it for you guys to put this in the chat if you have something to add to this. Um, but I'll say that when I'm wearing those story glasses, I want to run away when somebody makes me feel safe. I want to run away when somebody makes me feel loved. And I want to run away because, yes, just like Mary said, closing off when it gets too real. If you leave first, you don't have to feel abandoned. What Dawn said. It's exactly right. And this is why we don't go deeper. This is why we keep it light. We keep it surface level. If we got to go beyond that, if it gets too real, it gets triggering. And we want to take off in the other direction because I don't want to fall, because I don't want to hit the pavement like I did when I was a kid, right? I don't want to hit the pavement. It hurts. And it hurts even worse when you realize nobody's picking you up but you. And you might sit there and cry for the longest time, waiting for somebody to show up. And when nobody does, and you got to pick yourself up, it hurts even more because now you feel like it's just me. It's just me. There's nobody else there for me. That total feeling of abandonment, overwhelmed with abandonment. So rather than do that, we treat everybody else the way we want to be treated, is where people pleasing comes from. And then when they get too real with us, we run the other direction. Right? When we start to feel safe and loved and like we have the opportunity to be vulnerable, and maybe you even do, and then they prove you right by running in the other direction, you're like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this again. I can't be in this situation anymore. I need to remember I can't do this with people. And so we close ourselves off, we shut ourselves down, and we just run and we remind ourselves we got to keep it light. But what do we do when we do that? We keep ourselves stuck. We don't allow ourselves to actually have real relationships, to have real connection. We have to connect, we have to communicate, and we have to be willing to hear it from the other person. Right? I know that there's times when somebody will want to communicate and they want to communicate something that's like deeply feeling. And then you're like, I don't know if I can hear this right now. And so maybe you abandon them without meaning to, simply because you're like, I just don't have it in me to give you my strength right now because I'm holding on by a thread. And I don't have it, you know? Instead of realizing, you know what, we can both be disasters, just kind of like lean in hard to each other and just cry all over each other. And we can just be really, really real. I mean, these are the besties that you see on TV shows and movies and things like that. And you're like, oh my God, I want one of those. And then we're confronted with it. We're like, oh shit, we gotta run away. You know? So yeah, but it's an opportunity. And we need to look at that as an opportunity. Lean into others and hold your own simultaneously. Embrace love, don't fear it. Um, And I say hold your own simultaneously here because we can, when we lean into others and we do it from a sense of mirroring or showing up for somebody else, but not leaning in and letting them show up for us, you know, um, we have all the personas on, whatever, you know, it's like we have to like take off all the personas, Be 100% ourselves, be genuine, be authentic, not mirror or people please. Just be ourselves and allow that other person to be the same and allow yourself to go deep. Allow them a safe space to go deep. And then you're embracing that beautiful experience of human connection, of bond. It's like the biggest fear we all have is to really fully embrace love with anyone, even the people we're married to, even our best friends. But when we fully embrace it and we're not afraid to be ourselves, we hit a new level. We hit a new level. I want you to look at this picture right here. I saw this picture. I was like, oh my God, this is the best picture ever, especially for this conversation. But I want you to put into the chat here, what words, word or words, come to you when you look at this photo? I've got a few, but I want to hear from you guys first. Okay, Mary says freedom. Brenda says freedom. Jess says untamed. Sherry says freedom. Amber says freedom. Mary says life. Renee says freedom, breaking free. Dawn says breaking free. Lisa says total femininity. I don't know how many people are here. I don't know if you guys all answered or not. Sherry says just fly away. Amy says bursting through the wall. Yeah. Breaking chains, Allison says. Yeah. Untethered, says Jess. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to give you what I saw because I saw this picture from two different perspectives. You can look at what she's doing, or you can look at the cage. Now, what I was saying is you guys are looking at her. Okay. So I wrote this down. So I want to, because I wanted to remember specifically the words that I was thinking of. Okay. So when you see her, I'm seeing strength, I'm seeing courage, and I'm seeing freedom. Renee says, Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far away from Forrest Gump. Yeah, Jenny. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the cage, you could see that as safety, security, and stagnation. So many times we choose the cage. So many times we choose the cage. How many times have you agreed to something simply because you were afraid that if you didn't, something bad would happen? You'd get a reaction you didn't want to get or a situation you didn't want to deal with. So you just agreed to it anyway. You let something happen. You're in the cage in that moment. And you're in the cage willingly because coming out of the cage is too hard. It's too hard. And so we willingly stay in it. And when we choose to break free from it, yep, Renee, it's safe and familiar. Exactly. But when we choose to break free from it, we're taking a leap of faith. We're going into the unknown. And it takes a whole lot of strength and courage to be able to do that. Whole lot of strength and courage. It's hard to break free from the cages that we've chosen. It's hard to set ourselves apart and be willing to fall, especially because of how hard we've fallen when we didn't even know we were jumping. Opening up our heart space is about being vulnerable. And vulnerability isn't what most people think it is. What do you guys, when you think of vulnerability, what does that make you feel? Sherry says exactly how I feel about my newfound real estate career. Wish I would have jumped from my previous gauge years ago. Vulnerability, yeah. Pain. Uh-huh. What else? Vulnerability. What does that make you think of? If you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, scared, naked, exposed, transparency, power, Jen says. Yeah. Um, Sharing too many deep secrets to people who betray you. Yeah. Out there. Yep. hmm Vulnerability is it's honesty. It's honesty. It's openness. Um, it's being authentic. It's being courageous. It's saying, I can fall. It's saying it's safe to fall. Does anybody feel safe falling? I'm seeing some head shakes. Okay. I feel safe falling now. And it doesn't, I hear you, Jess. It doesn't matter to me what area of my life anymore. It doesn't. It's always safe to fall. And you know why it's safe to fall? Is because every damn thing I have been through in my life, I have picked myself up from and recovered. I have brought myself through every form of pain, trauma, denial, betrayal, everything, including this stuff self inflicted. I have filed bankruptcy. I have destroyed my credit. I have rebuilt it. I have done all sorts of things. I invested into real estate and lost my whole everything and came back. It's safe to fall. When you are open and you connect and you communicate, even when it feels scary, you got to do it knowing it's because it's safe to fall. That's got to be the goal, is feeling safe to fall. Because in order to be vulnerable, in order to go really deep and be so open to having real relationships with people, real connection, you have to know it's safe to fall, because that's the only way you're going to break out of that cage. Because we're facing the unknown and we have to be willing to fall. So you have to trust yourself enough to know that no matter what you experience, you're going to be just fine. No matter what you have to face, the one thing that can get you through more than anything else is yourself. And the more open and authentic you're going to be with everybody else, not being afraid to fall, letting those walls go away, those people are going to show up for you. They're going to show up because it's not some persona. You're not a scared little girl. You may feel like it sometimes. But when you feel safe to fall, you can let that part of yourself go and you can open up and you can connect with people. And if they don't connect back, it's okay. Because then you know this isn't somebody I can invest in anymore. And you're like, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Because now we're not sitting chasing this person saying, why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? Why won't you be my friend? We can see somebody and just say, oh, I see where you're at. I see what you're capable of. I'm capable of more. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to continue looking for those who are capable of meeting me where I am. I'm willing to go deep. Are you? And so if they're not, that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with people who are not willing to go deep. They're afraid. They're scared. And maybe you can help them open up, maybe you can't. But it's not your job to save everybody. Every person has to save themselves. What we can do is lean on each other while we do it. It's safe to fall. Hmm. How's that feel now? I heard somebody up here said empowering. Yep, very empowering. It's safe to fall because you've always got you. And when you've got you and you're being yourself, those people that see you glowing, they're going to show up and they're going to glow right alongside you. Jess, not sure that I 100% believe you, but it's refreshing. I
But the
do
right ones
understand that.
will. In
The
some
right
way,
ones will.
somehow we find ourselves in the right tribes, I think.
That's exactly right. Because here's the thing, there is an energy that you are putting out. Okay. There is an energy that you are putting out when you are people pleasing, when you are chasing others, looking for connection and not finding it. And there is another energy you're putting out when you're saying, oh no, I'm good. I got the story glasses off. I am happy being myself. I am good on my own. But I'm so open to connecting with other people. I'm so willing to be vulnerable, to go deep, to be my true self. And I would love to find other people to be alongside of me as I do that, as they do that. But it's a different energy, right? How many of you have had that guy that kind of like chased you and you're like, oh no, like friend zone, big time friend zone, but they're like chasing and they're like desperate to spend time with you or hear your voice or whatever. And it's like, that's so cute. But, there's an energy associated with that and it feels icky, feels icky. Even if you like that person, it still feels icky to be chased. And then when we are in a presence of someone who just like they're in their own energy and you can feel it and they're connected and they're willing to talk about their feelings and they're willing to share and be their whole selves and not be afraid. Those people, we look at them and we're like, oh my God, you're so awesome. Like you're not afraid to say anything or do anything, or you're just totally yourself, like unapologetically. And we admire those people. And that's because we're watching them glow. We're watching them glow. And that's the energy that when we see it, we want to be part of it. And so that's what happens when you take that energy on as your own. When it's your energy, when you are being authentic, when you are being 100% yourself, then you're just glowing. And people want to glow by your side. And then people will take cues from you because they see you as a leader. True happiness isn't found in money, prestige, or status. It's found in the difference you make in the lives of others, including your own. When you're people pleasing, you're not making an impact. You feel like you are. You think you are, but you're not making an impact. You make an impact when you are giving to give. when you are serving to serve, not because you're looking for acceptance, but because you genuinely want to offer something to another person. Don, you're funny. How are you making a positive impact on yourself? How are you making a positive impact on you? I make a positive impact on myself by crying a lot. I cry a lot because I don't want to bypass anything I'm feeling. I want to get to the root of it, and I want to see it for what it is, and I want to address it. And the only way I'm going to do that is by feeling it, going through it rather than over it or alongside of it or anything else. I just want to get through it. Mary says, surrounding myself with other glowing people. Mary glows bright.
She shines bright like a diamond.
Yes, exactly.
That always hits my brain.
Yeah. I want you to write that down though. How am I making a positive impact on myself? And I want you to give yourself some time over the next few days to really think about that and think about how you can make an even bigger impact on yourself. I make an impact on myself when I speak up for what I really feel, for what I'm really thinking, not just yesing people, you know, but actually saying what I feel, what I think, what I want. You know when somebody says, "Hey, what restaurant do you go to?" You're like, "Oh, I don't care anything," and then they pick something. You're like, "I hate that place." You're like, "But you go anyway." You don't say anything, because you're not speaking up for yourself. I've gotten really good at picking restaurants simply by just saying where I feel like going and not just always acquiescing to everybody else, but just saying, hey, you know what? I want to go here. Let's go here. You know, maybe it's great. Maybe it sucks, but that's okay. We'll figure it out together. No big deal. But it's you got to speak up for yourself. That's one way to make a positive impact on you, because when you do that and you speak up for yourself, you make yourself matter. So many people will think that you matter, but if you don't think that you matter, you've got your story glasses on, right? Jamie says, I've learned it helps to say what I am feeling, but I try to preface it so I can say what comes to mind, but in a disarming way to try and not make the other person defensive. Yes, I have done that too. And while it's a very, very caring way to be, sometimes we can lean hard into it and not. I've done that in a way, and I'm not saying that you are. I have done that in a way where I lean too hard into people pleasing, and I'll try to state my opinion, but then I let them override me very easily because I don't want to piss anybody off. You know, it's like it's okay for me to have an opinion until it's not. you know, and then I don't want to do that because I don't want to create conflict, right? And so what I've learned is that it's okay to create conflict. That's a big part of this, of going deeper, is saying it's safe to fall. It's safe to create conflict if that conflict is created by you having a voice. Sometimes your voice is going to create conflict because somebody else has their story glasses on. Not your job to save everybody and fix everybody else's problem. It's your job to fix your own. Right? So when we realize that we have a voice and our voice matters, then we're going into a space of feeling very deeply connected to ourselves And when we allow others to have an opinion as well and to have a voice as well, now you're deeper into that relationship and understanding each other, that you both have a voice and each voice is equally important. Like, hey, I want Mexican tonight. Hey, I want steaks. Steak tacos? Does that work? We have steak tacos. and, and maybe that works. Or they're like, hey, you can get fajitas at the steak place. Works, right? We both have a voice. We both have a voice. And that's what's really important. Allow yourself to be deeply connected and allow others to connect deeply with you. That's really the biggest thing that I wanted you guys to walk away with from here. When we allow ourselves to be deeply connected and we allow others to connect deeply with us, we can do it in a space of allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, knowing it's safe to fall, knowing it's safe for the other person to fall. Saying, hey, if you fall, I've got you. And if I fall, I've got me. But if you want to show up for me too, that's even better. Right? And when somebody doesn't show up for you, and you see that happen a couple of times, you recognize it as a behavior pattern and you walk away. Because that's not your person. And it's not that they're a bad person. Like sometimes we want to like make them bad. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means they're not capable because they don't love themselves enough yet. You know what we all have in common here? When we feel like it's safe to fall, we love ourselves so much. We've taken really good care of ourselves. We've made mistakes. We've overcome them. We do terrible things and then we fix it, you know? But we know we are safe. And we know that we can count on us, on ourselves. And then we know that we're willing to lean in deep to other people and be there for them. And that we expect them to be there for us too. It's when we have no expectation of another person that we have walls. So when we drop our walls and we're willing to lean in, but hold our own simultaneously, then we're willing to be deeply connected and we're allowing other people to be deeply connected to us too. So that's it. Here's a more updated picture of me, no longer 4 years old. I would love for you guys to connect with me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to connect with me on Facebook as well. But I love LinkedIn. That's kind of my favorite place to hang out. I have no idea what to do with Instagram. Sorry, guys. You're welcome to email me, call me, text me, whatever. If you guys have questions, thoughts, anything. Allison, thank you so much. I love you. Mwah. Thank you, Miranda. I'm glad this was recorded because I feel like we all need to hear this.
What an
Even
amazing,
me.
amazing experience, right? I think it brought us all to a point where it makes us think, right? Where we can connect and it be okay. And it'll be okay to allow other people to connect with us as well. And so, yeah, so very powerful, sweet friend of mine. You are amazing.
Thank you. You're amazing. I'm going to
So,
stop the share. Here we go.
I'm going to
remove the
move your
spotlight.
spotlight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if anybody has anything, I just, I want to end this. We're at 3:15 and I could sit here and listen to you all day because you just affirm so many things that we all think, and you make it okay for some things that we think and feel. And they truly are. It's not just you making them okay. It's you pointing them out that they are okay,
Yeah.
and need to hear that. We need to hear that. And so, the point of having this today and bringing us all together and talking about going deeper that's the mission. That's what we stand for. That's what we want with Power Girls, right? Like Dawn said earlier, welcome to Power Girls and taking your power back in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pouring into one another and making it okay to be vulnerable, making it okay to fall, and know that those that are glowing around us are going to be right there, are going to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
And like Angela said, in some instances, there might not be anybody glowing right there because they just can't. But you know what? We can. We can simultaneously. And so with Power Girls, we, you know, we, I'm going to back up. So I selfishly founded this group in 16 because I didn't know how to connect. I was always the boys' girl. You know what I mean? I was raised by a dad and brothers and had dirt in my teeth and dirty fingernails, and because I was on the baseball field the whole, all my life. And I just I wasn't a girl's girl. And it wasn't until, I was an adult and realized, I need something. And not until this past year. So what? I founded it in 16. It's now, we'll say it was 2023. Did I find my glowing people? And when I did, it hit me like a ton of rocks. And where did I find them? Right here. Right here.
Power
Because I
Girls.
opened up and I allowed myself to. And I shared some vulnerability, right? I was vulnerable. And I wasn't scared to be vulnerable. Does it mean I'm not scared sometimes to be vulnerable? Yes, ma'am, Power Girls. Does it mean I'm not scared sometimes to be vulnerable? Oh, hell no. I'm scared lots of times. But because of the women that are here and that I've met and that I have allowed myself to glow around, I like that. I like that, Angela. Glow. I am
Mm-hmm.
allowing myself to glow and they're allowing themselves to glow. I can
Mm-hmm.
fall.
Yeah.
And even though I may not bounce, it's less painful. It's less painful. And I want that. We want that for everyone here and every one of you that may watch this recording and every one of you that may hear it from one of these incredible ladies that are sitting here now. We want that for you. We're not a group of selling coaching and selling our listing packets and all that crap. We're here for one another. We're here for that humanization of it. Is that even a word? Of being
Yeah.
humans and having that connection and being women, strong, powerful women that deserve to be able to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
as hard as it may be. And we may be perfect. Hell yeah, we may be perfect. But sometimes we may not be. And our girl next to us may not be. But we're going to do it together. And that's what this is about. That's what we
Yeah.
want for you. And that's what we want for this group. And Angela, I cannot thank you enough for what you brought today. You freaking brought it.
Oh, you're
And you
welcome.
always do. And I just am so thankful for you and our friendship. And now I'm getting emotional. And all of the women that I can be vulnerable with. Thank you. Thank you for glowing with me. I wish my little thing would do hearts, but it won't.
I know my thing doesn't do it anymore either because I got the new Zoom download.
Right?
And
But you deserve to have this. If nothing else, you guys need to hear that you are deserving of your people, of your sisters, of your tribe, of your whatever you want to call it. but somebody to lean into, somebody to help hold you up, somebody that you can connect with and help hold them up. We're
Mhm.
all deserving of it.
Yeah.
So
I
is
think that's
anybody,
our new
yeah,
slogan, Mary, glow with me.
glow with me. We got to make a song, glow with me. No, I'm kidding. Oh, goodness. Anybody have anything that they would like to say? I hate just cutting Zooms off, especially when they're this deep. I don't want to just go, okay, so does anybody have anything? Or Amy, you are just darling. I'm watching you and I'm looking at your words and thank you. Thank you. And that's part of getting to know one another, right?
Yeah.
How cool is it?
Mhm.
Renee, I can go up to Renee and have the biggest bear hug and feel like everything in the world is just freaking perfect.
Mhm.
I'll go grab her as much as I can grab her when I see you, don't I, Renee? I'm like, come here, come here, come here.
Yes, I'm a lot to hug. I have
But
a lot
you
of
just,
cushion and
it's not that.
mushy.
It's
No, I'm
not
just messing
that.
with you. I'm just messing with
It's
you.
not that though.
I know.
It's what you just, it's what you exude. We're
Yeah.
Thank you.
glowing, you know. I mean,
Glowing.
we're two
Mhm.
women that I know I could and I don't know Renee that well, but I know I could call Renee and say, Renee, I need you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Mary, what do you need? I'm here,
That's right.
same.
you
Same.
know? And I want that. We want that for every one of you. So I'm
We
gonna
all need a
shut up
safe
now.
Mhm.
space. Yeah,
I
we
just
all need a
I
safe
want to
space, you know?
we do. We do all need a safe space. I just wanted to say too is I really want you to take this stuff that I've said today and implement it not just in your personal life, but in your business too. Because we're all in a relationship business. And it is very easy to put those story glasses on when we're talking to potential clients. And if you have the ability to take those story glasses off and be who you truly are and glow in that moment, people are going to gravitate towards you. You are going to get every single listing you ask for, and you will have no trouble converting people because people want someone that they can feel like they rely on. And so, if you can go deep with them, really hear them, really show up for them, and share yourself in that way, and have confidence that you know what you're doing because you do, then I mean, your business will take off in ways that you never seen it done before either. You know, it's pretty cool.
Yep. Well, all
We all
righty.
good?
Um, so we are looking for state leaders within Power Girls. I will share, not right now because I don't know where it is. I wasn't prepared, but I will put it in the cloud Power Girls. We need state leaders for Power Girls, and we're kind of keeping it in the family. The sun's killing me. Sorry, guys. We're keeping it in the family with state leadership, national leadership, and anything beyond that with an Epic. When we branch out and we get to a point where we've formed these connections and these sisterhoods feeling of these states coming together and having that, then we'll branch out and we'll do some local stuff. And at that level, it's broker agnostic. It'll be, you know, any leadership for local area can be any female realtor in that area. They don't have to be with Epic. So if you know somebody that you feel would be an amazing leader for Power Girls, state leader, um, have them reach out to us. But I'm going to post what states we need in, yeah, I can't do it quickly because I was thinking I
It's
could
okay.
do it, but I don't think I can do it quickly. But I'll post it in the cloud. So just go to the Power Girls group in the cloud and I will post the map there of what we need. and just send them our way. Renee, is that the application?
Yeah, that's the.
Awesome. So that is the state application, state leader application, that Renee posted the link for. It's very straightforward. It's just, hi, who are you? Tell us who you are.
Hot
And
mess will be my first line.
what was that?
The hot mess will be my first line.
Aren't we all though? But yeah, so with that, I just want to say thank you guys for being here. And if you ever need anything, please reach out to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Today was completely unexpected and I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
You are so welcome.
That was
So welcome.
amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And Mary, thank you so much for letting me do this. And, I started out by saying this has been a theme in my life, especially this year. And so it's really such a gift to be able to put this together and let it all out. So I really appreciate you guys all for showing up. And I really appreciate you, Mary, for letting me do this. So thank you.
I love you. I love you.
I love you so much.
Bye, ladies.
All right,
Have an
guys.
amazing rest of your day.
Bye-bye. Thank you.